Welcome to the Top Secret Wedding Podcast. Our top secret tip for today is make sure everyone on your team fills out an all about me sheet that can include favorite color, favorite flower, favorite candy bar, favorite drink, just everything so you have all the little details of what they like.
I love it. Want to learn how to set your team up for success? Listen to this episode.
This is the Top Secret Wedding Podcast, where we share top secret tips to help you take your wedding game to the next level.
I'm Annika, and I'm a wedding coordinator, enthusiast, and venue manager for one of the best venues in Idaho.
I'm Chris, and I'm a DJ, master of ceremonies, and all-around lover of weddings.
We're on a mission to improve weddings and wedding professionals everywhere.
Today, we are talking about setting your team up for success. So if you have a team that you are in charge of, big or small, I think there are some things that you can do and things that you can avoid doing that can really help you make sure that your team is set up for success, and ultimately making sure that you're set up for success.
Agreed. So let's jump into it.
Let's jump in. I think the first thing before anything else is to have a mission statement.
Yeah.
And I would guess that most people have a mission statement, but they haven't sat down and qualified exactly what it is.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, a lot of people, you can have a mission statement, but does your team know what it is?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not only just a mission statement, though, but what is your business core values?
Mm-hmm.
And do your staff align with those core values?
Yeah. Which that goes into hiring as well. But
oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, a mission statement is, it's not what you do. It's why you exist as a company.
Exactly. Yep. I completely agree. But you want all of your staff to know, like, why does this company exist? Why does your job matter? It's not just, a clock in 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. Because so for example, if Apple had started and they said we build great computers,
mm-hmm.
then they come along with the iPhone. Oh shoot, doesn't align with right. If it's what you do, but if it's why you exist, for me, Apple, I don't know what their official statement is, but for me, Apple is enhancing your life with digital tools like
exactly.
that. That's like, so everything that they do kind of aligns with that general idea. I could be wrong on that, but yeah. So for us, our mission statement is providing an experience to customers that they didn't know they could have. That's what it is.
What it is.
Giving them, and I mean, that guides all of their other things. What is your mission statement?
I knew you were going to ask me, and I don't have
Oh,
it.
come on. All right.
Okay.
But you knew where it was.
I knew where it was.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
Yeah.
Know where it is. Make sure your staff knows where it is.
Yeah.
We aim to use our incredible venue and customer experience skills to create lifelong memories and help make dreams come true.
Oh, that's good.
So
I love it. And that is true to what you guys do too.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So make sure that you have a mission statement. Make sure you know what it is. Make sure your not necessarily your clients, but make sure your team knows.
Make sure your team knows what it is. I've got my team meeting today. I think I'm going to bring that up and be like, hey, guys.
I worked at a company one time where the owner of the company would go around, and if he would ask you what the mission statement of the company was, and you could say it, he'd give you like $20 or $100 or something.
Dude, that's a good idea.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because then they're like, oh, I want to know. So mission statement.
Yeah.
The next step in setting your team up for success. I think you're probably better at this than I am.
I'm very structured, so I try to. But I think a key to setting them up is making sure they're trained well.
Yeah.
And a big part of that is not just the initial training, but continually training.
Yeah.
So, a suggestion of mine is to have at least like weekly trainings on something. It doesn't have to be big. But even today's training is probably going to be mission statement, if I'm being honest. But, just we have weekly meetings, and I love to start every meeting with some kind of training.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a little refresher of, hey, this is how we answer emails, or this is how we answer the phone, or do a bigger training. I just did a training, I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I kept calling it the dot your I's, cross your T's training. And it was just the details training.
Yeah.
Because we had started our weddings and there were a lot of little details that were getting missed.
Right.
It's like, hey, like, this is just the overarching list of all the details.
Yeah.
But have a weekly training of some sorts.
Yeah.
With that as well, make sure to ask or have a place where your staff can request trainings.
I've never thought of that.
Yes, because a lot of times, like, you can see we need to be trained on this or we need a refresher on this.
Yeah.
But if they have a question, they are going to take that training. It's going to be so much more beneficial if it's something they actually need.
So what does that look like for you? Is that like
So I will continually ask and just say, like, hey, like, almost every
I do
meeting.
that. I do that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too, though, is making sure to not just ask at the meeting, but ask individually. Like,
okay.
Again, in previous episodes, we've talked about those different meetings to have and having one-on-one meetings. And I talked a lot about having like a monthly one-on-one, very casual meeting.
Yeah.
So in those meetings, I will say, hey, how are you doing? What, is there anything that you have questions on, or what training would benefit you right now?
Right.
And they're going to be a lot more inclined to express what they want to see on a one-on-one than like
in a group
setting. Yeah, exactly. So I think with my base camp project management tool as well, they have automatic check-ins. And so I think like once a month, I send a question automatically that says like, what would you like to be trained on?
Oh, that's smart.
So then they can just respond. Yeah.
I like that.
But
okay. I think along with trainings, I think it's important to have, especially for the basics, I think it's important to have something written down.
Yeah.
Because for somebody new, you can, I always think that, I'm so smart, I'm giving them all the information.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember when I was training for jobs, I would forget stuff because it's all brand new and I didn't understand the terminology. So having something written down that I can refer back to, really important.
Well, and I think also kind of going along with that, almost every training, it's a little more work, but I try to have some kind of visual presentation because, not everybody's visual. I'm a visual learner, but one, it's going to help keep them more engaged. Unfortunately, like you throw some pretty photos up on a screen with bits of info, it's going to keep them more engaged than just like, hey, let's talk and have a training right now. But also, if you take the time to go in and make a visual training, you can reuse that. So all the time.
That's true.
Yeah. There are trainings that like I do yearly and I can just go right into my Canva or whatever and I go, okay, we're doing this training. Here it is. Now make sure they're up to date if there's anything you need to do. But we had a staff retreat a couple weeks ago and like half of the trainings I covered, I had made a year or two ago. And I just pulled them up and was like, here we go. So yeah. So I think that's important.
I love that. I think that's great. Okay, next, I think it's important to give them specific tasks, instead of like, okay, it's wedding day, go for it. Give them something very specific. This sounds so basic, but I think sometimes it's hard. It's easy to forget that first day is hard.
Yeah. It's so easy to forget that. I always have to like remind myself. Like,
they don't know everything I know.
Exactly. And even, excuse me, but even like they're not, if they're brand new.
Yeah.
Like honestly, their body is probably not used to running a 15-hour wedding day.
Yeah.
And, I'm very used to that. So I'm just like, oh yeah, we're good. We're all dandy. But they're like, it gets to 5:00. It's been 8 hours and they're like,
I think I've mentioned it before on the podcast, but I had an assistant that he said, so do you just always are your feet always hurting? Like
your feet always hurting.
So yeah, I think it's important to let them practice, give them a specific task and let them practice it. And also, I think it's important to not take over. It's so easy.
So important.
Like when I'm training my DJs how to mix one song to another, it's so hard to just stand back and watch them suck at it, right?
Yeah.
And but
You're
they
speaking my language. You're like, okay, that's not the most efficient way.
why are you so bad at this? But they have to learn. At one point,
Right.
I was terrible at it, and the only way I got unterrible at it was through practicing. Yep.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Real quick sidebar with you and mixing this last wedding.
Yeah.
Your mix was sick.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome. So.
Well, okay, that wedding was really fun because they were total EDM heads. Like they loved EDM. He proposed at a music festival, so it allowed me to step outside of the normal like
it was
boot scootin' boogie.
Yeah, mix. It was fun because it wasn't what I've always seen.
Yeah.
You know, but you did good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, but you have to let them practice and learn. I think that's the thing is like, you know, people always talk about the ways of learning is, what is it? You see one, do one, teach one.
Yeah.
You know? And so like, okay, they've seen you do it. The next step is they have to do it.
Right.
And they're going to learn so much by doing it.
Yeah.
But they have to go through that step to learn it.
Right.
So
the only way to learn how to play the right notes is by playing the wrong notes.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I also think that it's really important that you give them tasks that matter.
I agree.
One of my big pet peeves with college was that I knew that my homework assignments were going to end up in the trash can.
Right. Yeah.
But things that I did on my own for my own business, I worked harder on them because I knew that they mattered. So if you give, for example, you can give one of your team members the task to write the names on the chalkboard. Yeah. That's going to be seen by every single guest, and they're going to know that. It matters.
But like this next note, it's not essential.
Right.
That's a balance.
Yeah. So you don't want to give them something that could ruin the day if they mess up, because that's too much pressure for them until they're ready.
Exactly. With that as well, I think it's so important to, if you assign something, make sure they know or explain why it matters. Because sometimes tasks don't look like they matter. And so if you don't express why it's important, they're going to go in with the mentality of like, oh, this doesn't matter. But if it actually does matter, then one example I have is with our internship program, we have like weekly assignments. We call them the discussion board assignment, you know. But they make a blog post every week. And if, you know, you've been doing it for a while, it starts to look very like this doesn't matter. It's it's not going to go anywhere. But if you tell them, no, it does matter, we're going to be publishing this, they're going to take that a little more.
Do you publish every single one of
them? Working on it.
Okay. Yeah.
We have quite a stockpile at the moment,
gotcha.
But working on it. So, but that's the thing is like, not only does it give them ample experience writing blog posts, because if you don't ever practice, then they're hard to write.
Yeah.
But it looks very like busy work, but you have to make sure they know it's not just busy work.
Right.
So another example of that is the weeds at LaBelle have been on my mind a lot lately.
Yes.
I told you all about this. But if you tell a staff member, hey, go weed, that's going to come off as like a very busy work.
Right. Menial, like.
Yeah. But if you explain to them, and it's all about how you approach it as well. But if you say, hey, like our ceremony for this week is in this spot, all these weeds are going to be in the photos and we need to get rid of these weeds. That's going to come off totally different than go weed that.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
So, but with that as well, I think whatever you ask your staff to do, you always have to be willing, and not only willing, but like the leader in doing that task.
I agree.
You know, it's so easy to delegate what you don't want.
Yeah.
But it's even more powerful to delegate what you're willing to do.
Right.
If that makes sense. And I think that's the thing is I always get complimented that none of the interns or my staff or anything, like if I ask them to do something, they never feel like it's because I don't want to do it.
Right.
They're like, hey, I know you're willing. You're asking me to go take out the trash. I know you're willing. You're just busy.
Right.
But if you are never one willing to take out the trash or do the weeding or whatever, that's going to come off as very like, go work and do what I don't want to do. So
yeah, and I struggle with this sometimes because I feel like there's that line between I want to give you the opportunity to do these things, but at the same time I don't want to make it look like I'm not willing to do it.
Exactly.
Right? So and that changes with each individual person. Sometimes you have to force somebody to do something. And,
well, and I think a really strong way to do that is, of course, lead by example. And so if you have the time and you're going to delegate something, say, hey, I really need you to be in charge of trashes tonight. Let's take out this first round so I can show you, my tips on how to dump the trash, because sometimes they're really heavy and there's special ways to do it. Or, hey, we need to weed. This is the best way. Let me show you and get you started. That's going to come across way better than go take out the trash.
Yeah, and the other thing by doing it that way is there's a little bit of quality control and training in that moment too.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's good. Okay. Ownership. I think it's important that you give somebody, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's important that you give your people ownership over a task. If they're in charge of it, they're the ones that own that task.
Agreed. Well, and it's important too to know that, I mean, again, you're not going to let anything fail, but like if you give them full ownership, you need to make it clear you're not going to come in and rescue.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But don't fail.
Right. Well, and I think that's where the next one comes in is accountability, right?
Yeah.
That, you let them do it, but then once they're done and you're like, okay, you're finished, right? Then you can say, okay, well, you screwed up, or you did a great job, right?
Right.
I think it's important that they know that this task matters. They're owning that task.
Right.
Them alone, nobody else. I wish there was a quote about that.
I know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If what is it? If one, it's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, if more than one person's accountable, nobody's accountable.
Right. Yeah. So it's just important that they know that it's up to them to do it or not do it. And if it's not done right, it was also up to them. They need to be accountable for that.
No, I agree. And I think with that too, I mean, it's so important to give them the full accountability, but then go through and fix it with them.
Mm-hmm.
And so one example I have is actually yesterday I had one of the new consultants I'm training. I had her in charge of a floor plan. And I said, okay, this is yours. Like, take ownership of this floor plan. And it came to the accountability step where she's like, okay, it's done. Can you check it?
Sure.
I was on my computer and I was like, okay, well, like, it's good, but like there are critiques to fix. Sure. And I was about ready to just jump in and fix them. And I was like, okay, no. Like, I'm training with her later today. Yep. I'm going to wait and go through that with them so they learn. And it's not just, oh, well, here it is. Here's the fix. So.
Yeah. And some of the best ways to do that is through questioning, right?
Yeah.
So, for example.
Dude, I've learned that so much.
Right?
It's so powerful.
It's so much easier to just say, well, this should be done this way. But it's so much better if you're like, okay, if the guests are going to be entering from this entrance, then what is that layout going to look like to them?
Right.
So then they can be like, oh, the trash cans are right there. That's gross.
And they're going to learn more that way than you just saying, don't do this.
Yeah.
I think too, I can't remember the phrase. It's in a book I just read, but it's like, just because someone comes to you with a problem, don't take on that problem.
Oh, okay.
I think it's like a monkey or something. Yeah. I don't know. I think it was like if it's their monkey, it doesn't have to be your monkey.
Oh, yeah. That sounds familiar.
It's something like that.
Okay.
But so
somebody correct us. I just know what it is.
I know. I'm like, what? Yeah. I'm butchering that.
Yeah.
But if they come to you and they say, well, what's the best place to put a gift and sign-in table?
Yeah.
Turn it right back on them. Don't just solve it, but say, well, what do you think?
Is it not my zoo, not my monkeys?
Something like that. I don't know. It's on the tip of my tongue. But turn it right back on them, and don't solve their monkeys or their zoo or their problem or whatever.
Right.
Make them think through it and help assist.
Yep. If in the end they don't fix it
Right.
the right way, then obviously. But
then like explain it and say, actually, I see you're on the right path here. Let me help you out. We do this because of A, B, and C. You got to explain it because that's going to stick in their head.
Yep. But every once in a while, I'll do this and they'll come up with something that I hadn't thought of. Like,
exactly.
oh, that's better.
Yeah,
I like
that's better. That's good.
Yeah. So.
No, agreed.
Along those lines of we've kind of talked about coaching a little bit, but it's really important to give the feedback, give praise, give correction and coaching. It's really important to have that step in there. Otherwise, they're going to keep doing things the exact same way, good, bad, ugly. Yeah.
And never let anything simmer. If you're noticing, like my dearest husband is working with us right now.
Yeah.
And like there was something that I gave a correction on. And he was like, well, that didn't matter the last 3 weddings. I wasn't at those ones, so I didn't see it happen. But if I had been there to just see it right at the start and nip it in the bud, there wouldn't have been this like, well, it was fine before.
Sure.
So you gotta, don't let anything simmer. If you notice someone is doing something wrong, take care of it right then and there.
Yep.
Don't say, oh, I'll tell them about that on Monday, or I'll tell them about it next time, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just nip it. Take care of it.
Yeah. Obviously, appropriately.
Appropriately, of course.
I mean, not in front of clients or other or other team members, but
that's a whole other.
Yeah, I think we did talk about that.
I think we did. I do love though how you have correction/coaching. If we could always think of corrections as coaching, that mindset flip is so powerful, you know? But I also think it's important to never jump to conclusions.
Yeah, I agree.
So like if someone is doing something the wrong way and you need to give feedback, never jump and just assume, oh, well, they're doing it wrong because they're doing it wrong.
Because they're lazy.
What if someone trained them that way? And they're like, oh, well, that's how I was trained. Well, okay, now you have a new problem to fix and you need to figure that out. And, so just never jump to conclusions.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good reminder for me. I think also the praise is really important.
So important.
I can remember places that I've worked that I got a lot of praise or I didn't get very much praise. And you can deal with a bad job if it's a good work environment, but not the other way around.
No,
if it's a great job but a terrible work environment, So it's really important that you praise your people, and that costs you nothing.
Right.
It's free, and it's such a great way to get your team on your side. Obviously, you don't want to just praise for stupid reasons, but...
Right. I know praising, this is honestly something I need to work on, but this is, again, why those one-on-one meetings, monthly, bi-weekly, whenever, like bi-monthly, not bi-weekly.
Yeah.
But anywho, those are so important because that sets you up a time to give praise.
Yeah.
Because if you're like me, I am always so busy. I always joke I'm a chicken with my head cut off, just running around.
Yep.
It's not the forefront of my mind to go, oh, I need to give back some praise. But if you set up those meetings, that's an instant loop to praise.
Yep.
But still try to give praise whenever.
In the moment, yeah.
In the moment, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think too, it's so important to, it's good to give praise individually. Like it is great to give praise individually.
Yeah.
It's even more powerful to give praise in front of an audience.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. I think I've mentioned it, but praise in front of other people with emotion.
Yeah.
And correct not in front of other people without emotion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and I mean, another little thing while we're on that topic is not only should you be praising when applicable, but like go out of your way to make little, like, okay, let's say you're working a wedding or something or whatever, bring like your staff's favorite candy bar.
Yeah.
Like that's such a little thing,
Yeah.
That if you're like,
shows you remember.
It shows you remember. And I mean, there's so many times, we all know I'm a soda addict. Like if I'm going to my wedding day, I'm stopping at my favorite gas station and getting a drink. And so if I come back after lunch and I say, oh, hey, like I stopped at Great Scott's and here, I picked up a candy bar for you.
Yeah.
That cost me what, $1? But that's going to show so much more.
Yeah.
So
another thing that's important, I think, is to not shield your team from your customers' feedback.
Yes, I agree.
When I first started taking on other DJs onto my team, I would try and shield them, if they said something negative, and I thought, why am I doing that? That's just hindering them.
Right.
On both ends of the scale, whether it's good or bad. And so, for example, just last night, I got a text message from the mother of a couple, and she said, hey, Ryan killed it. He did awesome.
Good.
He did
good.
so good.
Yeah.
And we're just really appreciative of how the wedding went. And so I took a screenshot of it and right away sent it
right away in the moment.
They need to know that. The same if I've had, little things where they're like, hey, wedding was good, but this was kind of off.
Right.
Take a screenshot, send it to whoever's responsible, because they need to know that, and they need to feel that pressure from the client.
Yes. That's how they're going to grow.
That's it. The pressure from me is one thing, but the pressure from the client, I think that's almost more real.
Yeah, no, it is. It totally is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I totally agree. So, this next one is so true.
It's hard.
It's hard. It hits a little too close to home.
Yeah.
But it's true. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I've been reading, there's a couple of books, and now I can't remember the name. But I've been reading, let me find it here. It's Dichotomy of Leadership and Extreme Ownership. They're both written by the same people.
okay.
And basically they're like Navy SEALs and like they know what they're doing as far as leadership goes. And they give tons of examples where extreme ownership, it comes down to you. If your team didn't succeed, it's because you didn't give them the proper training, the proper motivation, the proper feedback loop, whatever it is.
Right.
It's up to you to make sure that they succeed.
No, I agree. Well, and it's one of those things where, when I was first stepping into my manager position, you have to find your footing. And I'm not going to lie, it was a little rough finding my footing for a little bit. But a lot of it is you have to take accountability and know, like, okay, if something's going wrong, what do I need to do better? Because just like this says, like, there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And there were a lot of constructive criticism within myself and my team to me of like how I could help better. And since finding my footing, like, I think we have a pretty rock solid team.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Fair.
But like, it takes time and you have to figure that out. But even if I'm always the worst, yet not the worst, I'm the most real, I guess. When somebody on my team starts to fail or whatever, I will always talk, I go home to my husband and talk through things, and he'll be like, oh, well, that's just them. And I'm like, okay, but no, like, if they're failing, what did I do? What do I need to do better for them to not fail?
And I would make that a personal challenge for yourself in your business, that if something goes wrong, one of your team members screws up, instead of thinking, what did they do wrong? Start with, what did I do wrong?
Exactly.
It's difficult.
It's hard.
But there's almost always something that you're like, I didn't tell them about this.
Right.
So,
I mean, I would say maybe like, I always throw out random numbers, but like maybe if something goes wrong, 10% of the time, maybe it's them.
Right.
But more often than not, it's something that could have been prevented by you doing something better or whatnot.
Yeah.
It's hard to swallow, but.
Yeah. And I think that goes to just caring about your team, caring about their success and their well-being. And I think if you really care about them, you're going to try and set them up for success by doing everything that you can.
Agreed.
So, yeah. The last point here is just rewarding your team. If they do a good job,
reward them.
Give them something. Give them an outing. Give them a candy bar. Give them something.
Give them something. Well, and I think even just like, it's the little things. So if they do a good job, reward them.
Yeah.
it's really fun and really easy to set up challenges. So if you say, hey, guys, if we book X amount of weddings this month, this will be a reward and we will do it. Yeah. Not only is that going to help them, but it's going to help your business.
Right.
Also, with showing appreciation, remember the little things. Dude, if you have a team member who it's their birthday and you don't, like, let's say you're in a meeting and it's their birthday.
Yeah.
How sad is that if you don't know?
Yeah.
So just
care.
Be a good
human.
Be a person. Care.
Yeah.
Reward your team. Celebrate the little things. Celebrate the big things. It's important. So
yeah. That's good. I love it. Well, that is setting your team up for success. And if you have anything that we missed, let us know. But good luck with your teams. We'll see you.
We'll see you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Top Secret Wedding Podcast.
Subscribe, rate, and review us, and we'll see you next time.